Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you got a ride. Yes.
It's such a dear soul. He was the kindest, sweetest man. Really a wonderful guy.
Yeah.
We miss him a lot.
We miss him mucho, right? Yeah.
And he told me one thing. He said, Robert, never leave the people, ever. No matter what, stay with the people. The answers do not come from the top rung of the ladder. The answers always come from the bottom rung. You are a person who walks with the people, and that is where you are to be until your time comes. And I thought, well, that has always been my desire, is to walk with people. And now as I'm aging, it's getting harder to walk. So, but Jerry is with us in spirit, and that is why I'm out here on this corner this morning, to demand peace and justice for all people. We need to stand in the middle, and say there is another way, and that other way is the way of peace.
I can't tell you how it felt to have such a holy man living at my house. He was just wonderful. When my cat died, he did a funeral for my cat, very Franciscan, and he was always going everywhere to support peace, to work for peace, and to speak out against any violence. And he was my example. He was my example, and I just love Jerry very, very much. And he's here today. He's with us in spirit. So I'm glad to be here.
I'd like to thank everyone from Tucson and from all across the country for being here to celebrate Jerry Zawada and his gentle, good life. He was a Franciscan friar, an activist, and a beloved brother, uncle, and friend.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they are the children of God. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Jerry, you were and are the salt of the earth. You were and are the light of the world.
Jerry was not allowed to share this statement in a Tucson federal courtroom before he was sent to prison for his November 2007 action at Fort Huachuca, protesting torture training. I stand in awe and gratitude to so many who showed me how to live and act in these days. Courageous people, some who have already moved on to the other side of life, who continue to bring to this earth a powerful message of what is needed to be done at this ominous juncture in human history. A thorough commitment to nonviolence, to a world where people of all backgrounds, nations, and ways of life are respected and cherished. People who say no, absolutely no, to all forms of torture, all forms of dehumanizing practices, no to warfare of any kind, certainly to one which is unprovoked and based on falsehood, no to sanctions which bring about the death of thousands of innocents. And yes, yes to the reality that we are able to live as one family on this planet. It is on account of the example of these courageous people that I have acted with others to draw attention to what is happening at Fort Huachuca and its participation in bringing about a regime that condones unmitigated abuse of truth and opens the door to physical and psychological torture and warfare. For this reason, at this time, I refuse to promise that I would refrain from acting in a nonviolent manner, to take whatever risks are needed to stop the warfare and abuse carried on in our name in Iraq and in other places of the Middle East. And if financial means were provided, I would go anywhere to join other people of conscience to change the downward course our nation and its leaders have taken. As a follower of St. Francis and Clare of Assisi, I long to spread peace, justice, and care for all creatures in our earth home. At the sacred season of Advent, it is hope that looms large in many a heart. A good time to spend in or out of prison if the message of this season becomes a reality for a world that is sickened by violence.
I first met Father Jerry 38 years ago when I was living in a small intentional Franciscan community in Chicago. And from the very first time I met him, his humility shone through. He had just had some time with mental health issues, had taken the time out, and then he reawakened his Franciscan commitment down in Texas, learning about how people were suffering, especially those coming from south of the border at the time. There's always something about Jerry that's kind of a mystic to me. It seems like whatever he got himself involved in, somehow things kind of worked out, even though it wasn't planned ahead of time.
Several years ago, Jerry told a reporter, "Every single one of my dreams at night are dreams about living and sharing life with the poor, with people who are destitute." And I sense I have a strong calling for that.
He was helping refugees there when he heard the story of Maria Alicia Rivera, a school teacher who was tortured by the military in her native El Salvador. Jerry said later, "I realized I didn't have the luxury anymore of concentrating in my depression. Her story was my resurrection. It came down on me almost like a light. I could not do something. I didn't have to take away anybody's pain. I just needed to walk with them and learn from them and accompany them in their plight. And maybe somehow I describe it in my religious terms as seeing the Jesus Christ face and then hopefully work with others for some type of resolution and relief."
A part of Jerry's heart was always at the U.S.-Mexico border. Living in Texas in the early 1980s, he transported, fed, and prayed with Central American refugees who had crossed into the U.S.
During one of his arrests, the armed soldiers ordered Jerry to lie face down on the ground, arms outstretched, until they put handcuffs on his wrists. A powerful memory returned to Jerry, a memory of lying prostrate before the altar 25 years earlier on that very date, taking his solemn vows as a Franciscan priest. Jerry spent 25 months in prison for his repeated missile silo arrests and continued to protest nuclear weapons throughout his life.
In December 2007, after a protest against torture at Fort Huachuca, Jerry was jailed with many migrants at a private prison in Florence, Arizona. The Spanish-speaking prisoners asked the friar if he could please celebrate Mass on Christmas Eve. And so he did, with white bread and watered down packets of grape jelly, saved from his meal trays.
One of Jerry's favorite t-shirts, and I'm wearing one today in his honor, has a quote from the Catholic worker, pacifist, anarchist Ammon Hennessy, where when threatened with arrest for protesting, he would say, "I'm not disturbing the peace, I'm disturbing the war." When he went to court for one of those actions at Creech, Jerry told the judge, "I would gladly spend the rest of my life in prison if I could save the life of one child."
When we feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and house the homeless.
When we speak out against torture and accompany the survivors,
when we welcome and help the migrant and the refugee,
When we act for a nuclear-free future,
When we support our brothers and sisters in prison,
When we wage peace by resisting weapons that wage war,
When we stand up for the rights of women who are called to the priesthood in the Roman Catholic Church. When we work to build a better world for all, a world in equality, love, justice, and peace.
We celebrate. We celebrate. We celebrate. We celebrate. We celebrate the life of Jerry Zawada.
In addition to the 3 knots in Jerry's Franciscan cord, representing his vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. In later years, he added a fourth knot for the vow of nonviolence, written by Father John Deere and Eileen Egan. Before God, the Creator, and the Sanctifying Spirit, I vow to carry out in my life the love and example of Jesus by striving for peace within myself and seeking to be a peacemaker in my daily life, by accepting suffering rather than inflicting it, by refusing to retaliate in the face of provocation and violence, by persevering in nonviolence of tongue and heart, by living conscientiously and simply so that I do not deprive others of the means to live, by actively resisting evil and working nonviolently to abolish war and the causes of war from my own heart and from the face of the earth.
Good evening, everybody. It's just a great joy and privilege to be with you here tonight. I feel like we're one heart beating for the same important values that we desperately need in our society, in our lives today. Conspiracy is a word that tends to get me into trouble sometimes. I know a lot of you too. But it's a wonderful word. I love it because it means people breathing together. And I feel like this group is a group that breathes together. Breathes for peace and for justice and for hope and for some life. They say that if you tell an anarchist to walk one by one in single file, carrying big signs, it takes about 60 seconds before they change their mind and they start walking together. Well, for our group, it takes only about 30 seconds. In 30 seconds time, we begin to walk together. I hope you come to find that which gives life a deep meaning for you. Something worth living for, maybe even worth dying for. I can't tell you what that might be. That's for you to find, to choose, to love. Words given to us by Eda Ford.
This little light of mine